What is good, everybody? I am here on my couch. More like it, I am on. I've pulled it out to be a bed. Um, I'll explain why in a little bit. So, I have been gone for a few weeks, and to be honest, I am not sure if if I'm even gonna post this video, but I feel like I need to, just because I um, have been going through a lot, and I feel like I want to share my experience so that if somebody else comes across this video and is feeling the way that I've been feeling, that they don't feel alone. Um, so, yeah. If you're new to this channel, hi, my name is Yvonne Ventura. You are in my house. Welcome back if you're coming back. I am back. Because what choice do I have? I shouldn't say that. What choice do I have? I honestly truly like being here. Um, I have been finding a lot of joy in creating content and posting it to my channel and hearing responses from people. That's been really nice. Something that really made my day today is that I looked back on my Feeling Fiery video. If you haven't seen that, just go to my channel history, you'll find it. Um, the author of that book actually commented on my Ratchet retelling, and she said that she liked what I had to say. So thank you, and thank you to the 47 of you that are subscribed to my channel. I really do appreciate seeing the growth. Um, so I guess let's bite the bullet. Let's grab the bull by the horn, so to speak. Where have I been? You guys, I don't know if you've been following my videos, but every now and again I've been posting some health updates. Um, to kind of sum it all up, I have been diagnosed with anxiety, and I have been prescribed an SSRI, and I have been taking that medication for going on. Okay, I started it on the 2nd, so today would be about, I guess, a little over 2 weeks. So, I guess I should explain kind of the journey and how we came about diagnosing me with anxiety. I'm still even having a hard time processing that and like saying it out loud. Um, so let's just get into it. So on, I wrote down some notes because if I don't have notes, I'm gonna be a mess, y'all. I'm gonna be so incoherent. Um, let me. There we go. So on July 3rd of 2024, it was a day like any other. I was driving home from work. It happened to be one of the hottest days of the area where I live. I remember vividly, it was 103 degrees. I was driving the same road home I always drive. Um, and I felt myself getting very weak. Um, I've fainted before in the past, so I can only describe the feeling of like I felt like I was about to pass out. My heart was racing. I felt myself getting hot. I felt my limbs starting to get weak. And in that moment, I was able to pull over into an empty parking lot. I took a sip of some cold water, and I was able to like take deep breaths, and then that sensation went away. So then I started to drive again. And hi, Bruce. And so when I started to drive again, I maybe made it like a block. And the hi baby. He's been quite a supportive baby this journey. But anyway, so I went about a block, and it started happening again. And this time everything started to go dark. And again, I was able to, by the grace of God, find an empty parking lot, pull over. and I whipped out my phone. In that moment, my adrenaline was going. I remember being able to see the number of the building I was in. I was able to, for the first time in my life, I called 911. I've never called 911 before in my life. Um, I was able to tell them the number of the building, the street that I was on, what my car looked like, my license plate, and the paramedics came. They picked me up and they hauled me to the emergency room. And at that time, they had filled me with like 2 sacks of fluid, and they pretty much were sure that I was dehydrated. And looking back, I mean, I was a gnarly coffee drinker back then, y'all. Like, I had had a big ass iced coffee. I had a Coke Zero for lunch. Probably barely like any water. Um, so I was at that moment. They said I was dehydrated. They filled me with fluids and they sent me home. Well, okay, they sent me home, but they also referred me to a cardiologist because um, fainting is typically like a cardiac thing, and so that then they sent me home because they were able to determine that I wasn't dying, and yeah, so I started the journey with the cardiologist. Um, I am so that experience in itself was very traumatizing. And for context, I grew up being the strong one in my family. So my mother and my sister both have anxiety disorders. So I grew up in a house where there was a lot of anxiety, a lot of um, well, essentially, from a young age, I kind of was in that environment. I conditioned myself to be the strong one in my house, to be unfazed. If you've seen Encanto, I really resonate with Luisa's character, where I tended to internalize a lot of things because I felt the need to take care of my older sister and my mom and my dad. I felt like I needed to be that strong person in general. So with that, I became hyper independent. Um, since my sister and my mom have anxiety disorders, they themselves don't drive. And so when it became my turn, I insisted that I needed to be able to drive. I needed to not be that way. Okay. So, um, so when this happened, I knew immediately that I was afraid to get behind the wheel again. Like I was afraid of it happening again, and um, I would experience kind of similar symptoms behind the wheel, especially when I was driving that particular road and I was driving by myself. But when I had, like, let's say, my sister in the car with me and we were driving that road, um, I would be fine. And so um, at that moment, like after that had just happened, I told myself, okay, I'm gonna force myself to keep driving and I'm gonna get over this myself because don't, I'm not an anxious person. I can get through anything, mind over matter. I can do this. And that's what I was forcing myself to do. And um, about a month later, so August 24th of 2024, um, I experienced a similar episode literally right here on this futon as July 3rd. I remember I was reading a book, and if I'm being completely honest with myself, the book that I was reading got to a very like I was very invested in this book, you guys. Like I was super into it. And I got to a part in the book that really upset me. Um, and my heart started to race. My limbs started to start getting weak. Things started to get dark, and I was trying really hard to breathe through it. I told my husband to get me some rubbing alcohol because I felt like I was fainting. He ran, got to get the rubbing alcohol. I was trying to smell it to like stay because at that moment I described the feeling as like I'm aware that I'm leaving my body. And when he came back to me, I smelled the alcohol a couple times and I left my body. I passed out. And when I came to, my husband was screaming. He said that it looked like I had seized. Um, and so that was the second time we called the paramedics. And I was hauled to the emergency room, and they couldn't find anything wrong with me. And at that moment, they kept asking me, like, is there something that you're stressed out about? And at the time, I was so in shock that I didn't really put two and two together. In my mind, I was just sitting reading a book, and then the next thing I know, this sensation took over and I passed out again. So at that moment, I was still convinced there was something physically wrong with me. Um, and so I was already in the process of like meeting with the cardiologist. Um, so like promptly after that, they put what's called a Zeo patch over my chest, and that monitors your heart rate for 2 weeks, day and night. And anytime I was starting to feel some sort of sensation, like my heart's racing, I'm starting to feel weak, um, anytime I started to feel any of those like fainting type sensations, I was to push the button on the monitor, and it was supposed to like flag it so that they could see what kind of activity my heart was doing at that moment to see if they could narrow it down to like an arrhythmia, a murmur, or anything like that. Um, Spoiler alert, um, I pushed that button every single time I drove. I did. um, and then when I got my results back, the cardiologist said there's nothing physically wrong with me. Like my heart wasn't doing anything abnormal when in my mind my heart was doing crazy things. Um and it I was like, okay, well, there's nothing physically wrong with me. And at this moment I kind of knew in the back of my mind that it was anxiety, because I just and I just was very much fighting it and in denial again, because my mom and my sister have anxiety, and me feeling like I have to protect them and take care of them. I didn't want to have anxiety too. So I they gave me, like, at that time the cardiologist, after they found nothing on the 2 week observation, they said that they could actually put in like an implant, like above, like under the skin but above the heart, like kind of in that, like it's like metal, kind of looks like, the birth control that you put in your arm. But she said that they could do that, essentially give me an implant that's supposed to stay in for 5 years, and really do like an in-depth observation, so that if there was something that they couldn't catch in those 2 weeks, they could catch in that 5 year time frame. And the idea of that scared me, because again, I was starting to kind of acknowledge that it wasn't my heart. Um, and so I declined, and we kind of left it. The cardiologist and I kind of came to the agreement that if I ever had another episode like this, that then we would pursue the implant. And so that's kind of how it stayed. But privately, um, when I was driving alone, I would feel those sorts of symptoms: heart racing, palm sweating, um, chest pain, arm like trickling to my arms, like there's like a burning sensation, heartburn, a lot of heartburn, um, just trembling, that sensation that I felt like I feel like I'm gonna leave my body if I don't breathe deep. That happened a lot when I was driving by myself. And then eventually, right around August, September, I had a meeting at work where I had to drive to a different location with my team. And before any of this started happening, I used to be that person. Like, I'm happy to be like DD. I'm happy to drive around. I had always found driving to be a very freeing feeling because, again, it's something that my sister and my mom can't do. And it was something I felt like I could support my dad in, to help transport my sister and my mom. Like, it was a very empowering thing for me. So, of course, I offered to, hi, baby. I offered to drive us to this meeting. So we went. And I had a great time at the meeting. Um, it went off without a hitch. I drove there just fine, felt nothing because we were laughing. And then on the drive home, or on the drive back to the office, I had a car full of people and I felt it. I felt my heart start to race. I started to feel like that burning sensation. I started to feel like there wasn't enough air in the car. Please excuse my cat. So I started to feel like I didn't have enough air in the car. Um, by that point, I kind of like I pointed the air conditioning at my face at all times to feel like I had some air coming into me. Um, and I had never experienced it when I had others in the car. And so that really terrified me. And I remember driving and they were laughing and joking around. Because on the outside, it doesn't look like anything's wrong with me, but inside, like I knew that there was something horribly wrong. Um, and so I was just breathing. I'm like, God, please let me get to the office. Please let me get to the office. And I made it back and we parked. And I remember being like, my hands being so clammy and my hands were trembling, but I didn't say anything. I acted like nothing was wrong and I didn't say anything. And from that point on, even if my sister was in the car with me, so for context, she and I work together. So I'm usually like the Uber for both of us. Um, so from that point on, with or without people in the car, um, I would start to feel these sorts of symptoms. Driving short, driving the route to work, driving any route, it it has been really hard. Um, but it doesn't stop there, folks. I still continued to essentially essentially suffer in silence, keep this to myself, and progressively, not only was it driving, it then turned into showering by myself. Like I started to experience these things in the shower. Um, Feeling hot. Anytime I was starting to feel hot, because one of the things, like I feel hot, my heart starts to race. So anytime I would feel hot, I was starting to convince myself that it was going to happen. And I would essentially trigger these symptoms to happen. I would never fully faint, but I would feel the sensations, like that buildup of that starting to happen to me. Um, and then it kept it kept getting worse. Um, at its worst, I started becoming afraid of falling asleep. I started feeling like, because of that fainting, feeling like I'm leaving my body, I started feeling like I was not going to wake up if I fell asleep. And that was really fucking hard. Um, and so one night, I'm going to say maybe like December, I'm going to say 23rd, I, in the middle of the night, I woke up and I started feeling that feeling of like you're not well, you're gonna pass out, your heart is racing, you're having a heart attack. Like there, And I was able to, like, I made my husband turn a fan on in my face so that I could feel like I was having air coming in. I was able to breathe through it, but that was sort of when, like, a turning point for me where I knew that these were panic attacks. Like, this isn't anything physically wrong with me. So I ended up, after I accepted that, I purchased these anxiety and stress relief herbal pills from Amazon. I'm laughing because I sound like I'm laughing now because in hindsight I let this go on for far too long. I did. But anyway, I purchased these herbal supplements and I started taking them. And they started to help. They made like a slight difference, to the point where I was able to, for the most part, live my daily life. But at that point, when I had woken up feeling that way, I kid you not, I was experiencing anywhere from at least 4 panic attacks per day. Sometimes it would get like up. Sometimes it was 8. Sometimes it was just like every hour on the hour. I was feeling something like that. Um, and it got like it got so bad to the point where it wasn't just even showering. It was like, this is TMI, but like even like sitting on the toilet for too long, I would feel like I was gonna pass out. Like, it just, on the toilet, in the shower, I'm afraid of my bed. I'm afraid to drive. I'm afraid to be by myself because who's gonna help me if I'm by myself and I have something like this? So I'm taking these stress anxiety relief herbal supplements. They're ashwagandha root, if you're curious. Um, and I thought things were great. And I went on a girls' date with some good friends on December 29th. The day I filmed my last video, actually. Um, I had really bad heartburn that day. And I was feeling particularly, I call it jittery, but like I was feeling anxious that day. Um, but I was like, this ashwagandha root, it's helping. It's gonna help me. I'm fine. I'm totally fine. And then I wasn't fine. That night, I had the worst panic attack of my life. Um, it was 11 o'clock at night. My husband was in the shower in a different room. I was in my bed. Because again, I'm afraid of my bed at this point because I had that horrific panic attack the week before. So my heart's racing in my bed. I'm trying to breathe through it and tell myself, you are just in bed. Everything's okay. But physically, my heart was racing. I felt like I was trying to, like, my body, like I felt like my soul was leaving my body. I was hot. I felt like there wasn't enough air in this world that was gonna come into my body to make me feel okay. Um, my husband came out of the shower, um, and he turned the fan on in my face. He was trying to talk to me to distract me, and it would work. Like, I would feel my heart rate come back under control. But then when my heart rate would get under control, I would get so cold, y'all. Freezing. To the point where like I was having full on like tremors. Like, I was trembling. Like, super trembling, like uncontrollable trembling. And then the trembling would stop, and then my heart rate would pick up again and I would get hot, and it was happening again, and it cycled like that for about 40 minutes. So if you have ever had a panic attack before, can you imagine a 40-minute panic attack? When you're having a panic attack, 1 minute feels like 10. Okay? So I went through this loop for 40 minutes. And I know that because that is the time I had my breaking point, and I told my husband to call the paramedics because I genuinely thought I was having a cardiac event and I was dying. And so here we go. 11:40 p.m. I'm in the ER from a little after midnight through 3 in the morning. They ran all the sorts of tests on me. Keep in mind, I have had so many tests on my heart. I have been poked and prodded so many times since July. And again, there is nothing physically wrong with me. They have run every sort of test they could. I have had ultrasounds of my heart. I have had so many tests. And once they said that there's nothing wrong with me, um, I broke down because I knew what it was. And I had no other choice but to admit that this was anxiety and that I had essentially trying to ignore it, trying so hard not to be my mom and my sister. I made it worse because I thought I could, because I thought that as the strong one, I could get over anything by myself. And I don't know, um, I mean, I do believe that there is a God, but I wouldn't necessarily consider myself like a member of any, like, culturally I grew up Catholic, right? But I don't necessarily consider myself um, truly part of an organized religion, but I do believe that there's a God. Um, and I do believe that most things happen for a reason. And as I've been processing it, at this whole experience, I truly do think that there's a lesson in this, that I've been such a independent person, and I've always tried to get out of things myself, and I'm so busy taking care of like I always pour into other people, and I've never felt like I've needed support. And I feel like the universe found a way to tell me that I need to ask for help. It forced me to ask for help. It forced me to admit that there was something wrong and that I couldn't do it by myself. And I did. Like I had to say it. I told my mom, I told my sister, and I've told a select few. Now I'm telling the internet, so I guess it's out. um, that I'm not okay. And that was really hard. It was really hard because I felt like I failed. Did. I felt like I should have been able to do this by myself. And I almost embarrassed that I let this happen to me. Does that make sense? I feel like if you know, you know. So, anyway, that happened. I had an appointment with my primary care physician on January 2nd. At this point, I'm still forcing myself to drive. Okay, yo? I am. Um, because I feel like it's a necessity. I need it. I need to do it. Um, and I tell them that I think I have anxiety. They give me a questionnaire, and normally I was gonna be really Mexican about it and like downplay my symptoms, but I had to be honest. I was really at wit's end. I felt so horrible, constantly being in this state of fight or flight. It's draining. It's draining. And so I answered five, like, it's like 1 to 5. Unfortunately, I answered 5 on literally every single question about anxiety because that's how bad I felt. And the the little like medical assistant that had given me the form, she read my results and she cried. And she gave me like a pep talk and said that she was only crying because she knows how brave it was of me to even come in. And again, it was one of those things that in the moment I also cried because I couldn't believe that I had waited for it to get that bad. So my primary care physician prescribed me and like I said, an SSRI. If you don't know what that is, I'll use my fancy editing skills to include something that explains what it is. But it's an antidepressant. So if um, you're curious, I'll be honest. I'm on 10 milligrams of paroxetine. My doctor also prescribed me like a pill that could essentially stabilize my heart rate to like stop any sort of palpitations, called propranolol. Um, and that was like in case I was going to do anything that I knew was going to trigger that, you know, palpitation, crazy like panic attack reaction, anything that was particularly triggering. Like her example was, since I had shared that driving was one of my biggest triggers, she said that like driving, if I was going to have to do a long drive to, you know, about an hour away or something, um, that she would recommend that I take the propranolol to for me to be able to drive and not have to worry about having my heart race and inducing a panic attack. Um, so I actually have not taken that specific pill. I have just been taking my daily 10 milligrams of paroxetine. Um, y'all, I have never been on any medications before. Um, but that first week was rough, man. It was rough. It was slow to kick in. I will say again, if I'm having 6 panic attacks a day, I would say maybe 2 days in, I was having 5 panic attacks a day. Day three, 4 panic attacks a day. Like it was very gradual. So week one was really hard. I was still waking up at night feeling panic. Um, Not to the severe extent to like where my husband needed to call the paramedics because I was convinced I was dying. I was able to breathe through it and go to sleep, but I was still waking up with fear and panic. Um, After and the heartburn. The heartburn just wouldn't go away, y'all. I couldn't eat anything without feeling that burning in my chest. I I literally like barely ate the for like 2 weeks. It was really bad. Um, and then there was a particular day where I ended up like I was having a really hard day at work, and I ended up asking my sister. I'm like, it. I feel like these pills aren't working. Does is it supposed to like feel worse before it gets better? And my sister, you know, bless bless her. I don't say it enough, but I can't express how supportive she's been through this whole thing. Um, but she essentially just kind of confirmed that sometimes yes, it does feel a little worse before it feels better. And literally the next day after that, everything felt different. Like it just feels like a weight was lifted on day 7 of taking the paroxetine. I mean, I like week 2, it was so I think this I don't know, this might be 3 weeks, I don't know. But anyway, I was having like the second week, like after the first 7 days of pills, that 7 to 14, um it was I would have one really good day where I wouldn't have any panic attacks, and then I would have a shitty one where I would have maybe 2, 3 panic attacks. But again, they were like lessening in severity. Like they were like help. Like I was able to again breathe through it, and sometimes almost like ignore it. Like I would be conscious that my heart was beating, but like I was aware of what it was, and like it didn't fluster me or stress me out like it was. Um, and now I feel like I'm having 2 really good days and one harder one. Some other things that I've been doing to that I kind of did to cope. These last 2 weeks, I've ruled out driving completely because it's been one of my biggest triggers. And if I'm wanting this to like if I'm wanting to recover, I truly shouldn't be stressing myself out, and forcing myself to do things that I know trigger me. So I'm not driving. I'm very lucky that my husband's work schedule allows for him to take me and my sister to work, and that my father works night shift, so he's able to pick my sister and I up from work and take us home. Something else I was doing these last week, because being alone is one of my triggers. I was staying at my sister's house until my husband got off work, so he would pick me up and bring me home after. So I was being a bum at my sister's house, laying on her couch, um, and that like that helped. Yesterday was literally my first evening by myself here in my house. Um, so it's been slow progress, um, and I guess I kind of say that to say like if I'm not filming as regularly as I was, like be patient with me. I'm clearly going through a lot right now. Um, I'm feeling like at this point there's more parts of the day where I feel like me versus not. Whereas before the medication, I didn't know who I was anymore, and I I missed me. You know, like I missed me. Um, some other things that I've kind of been incorporating to, I guess, help me relax. I drink tea, chamomile tea, seven blossom tea, anything that's caffeine free. So I don't fuck with caffeine anymore. Um, and I don't. I'm also trying not to have like too many sweets. Um, Definitely not drinking alcohol anymore, um, because that's also something that's really like that triggers me. Um, so yeah. So right now, I mean, I'm home now with my cats. They're happy that I'm back at home. Um, I guess so. You see me on the futon. I haven't mentioned it, but again, laying down in my own bed, unfortunately, is also something that is still a little triggering. So, I've been staying on my futon, but I'm feeling more and more every day like life is coming back together. And I know that sooner rather than later, I'll be back in my bed. I'll be driving again. And I can only hope that this will just be in the past. I mean, I know now that I have an anxiety disorder, it'll be, it's not, progress isn't linear. I'm sure there will be ups and there will be downs. So, again, to reiterate, please be patient with me. Like, if I have any regressions or things flare up and I'm not able to post consistently, please give me grace. Um, and I will try not to put too much pressure on myself for this channel because this is a hobby that has been fun for me, and I don't want to like end up growing some weird resentment toward it because I stressed myself out. So, um I guess that's my update. That's my health update. Um Thank you if you watch this. I hope that if you yourself are also struggling with an anxiety disorder, you are not alone. Get help if you need help because that's what it's for. I don't know why I waited so long to get help, to be honest with you, because my quality of life was just in the toilet. I was not living. And it it really is just such a dark, lonely hole. And it's horrible. I truly do not wish this on my worst enemy. Honestly, it's horrific. And you know, as some people have asked me, like like some people in my personal life have asked me if I'm like doing therapy. At this moment, no. Um, just because. I feel like I have a lot, I feel very blessed in that I have a lot of support right now from my sister, my mom. I have another really good friend who was also struggling pretty severely with anxiety a couple of years ago, and they and 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 I feel like I have a very good support system where I can speak freely, and like there's no judgment. They've all either been through it themselves, or they understand because they care about me. And so, yeah, I mean, at this point in time, I'm on the path to healing. Again, if you've made it this far, thank you so much for watching. I promise to go back to my regularly scheduled goofy videos that I've been posting. um, it just I just feel like I needed to get this out of off of my chest and share again, because maybe this will help somebody. I hope it does. And if it doesn't, then this is just for you guys to know more about me. Um, Miss Mike over here in the corner. Mama, Mama, come say hi. Here's Bruce right here, and here's Mama, Miss Mike, my cats. They have been particularly clingy during this time of my life. But yeah, so health update. I have anxiety, and I'm on medication. Oh gosh. Okay. Well, I guess I will just end it here. I can't find my remote anymore, y'all. Okay, there it is. Okay. I will end the video here. Um, please send me positive vibes. Send me like I hope that this is just, I don't know. I hope that it's only up from here, honestly. I want to get back to living. All right. I'm in my pajamas. I'm going to go wash this makeup off my face, and I'm going to watch 9/11 documentaries until I fall asleep. I love you all. I will see you next time. Deuces.